So I'm Casey, this is Noel, and like Golan said, we're with the BreatheChina group. And we've been working with our partners at Tsinghua University to develop a pollution monitoring app. And when they first came to us, their goal was to develop an open platform for connecting citizens, government, and businesses on the issues of pollution in the country. And so to kind of tackle that, we've developed a three-pronged approach that we call See, Talk, Change. So we want people to see and understand the pollution that's in their environment, like what the health effects are, what are the sources, and what actually is in the air. We want citizens to talk about it amongst each other and communicate pollution issues to their community leaders, or government leaders, and business leaders. And then finally, we want them to take actions to actually change their environment for the better. So to start, let's look at where China is today. It's no secret that China's economy has been experiencing tremendous growth in the past few decades. And sometime in the next few years, it's predicted that the number of middle-class Chinese citizens will surpass the entire population of the US. This progress, though, has not been without negative consequences, and one of the most visible and contentious side effects of this progress has been environmental degradation. And it's been really bad in China. In 2008, almost 10% of China's gross national income was negated by environmental damage. And the World Bank predicts that the combined cost of air and water pollution in the country takes a toll that's equal to about 6% of the entire country's GDP. And in China's larger cities where pollution is the worst, foreign corporations are finding it more and more difficult to fill expatriate positions for jobs there because applicants are expressing concern for their family's health. And environmental problems could add to the perception that China's economic future maybe isn't as strong as it kind of proclaims, especially from the perspective of foreign investment. And in addition to the economic implications of pollution, Chinese citizens are demanding higher health standards and more accountability for pollution and the careless discharge of pollutants. And just a few weeks ago, this mounting pressure led to changes in China's environmental protection law. And now authorities actually have the power to detain individuals who repeatedly are violating pollution codes. Although it's kind of unclear to what extent the officials will actually enforce these laws, Xi Jinping, China's president, was recently seen walking outside without a mask during a hazardous air pollution day. And this led to front page headlines reading that often read, "Breathe together, share a common fate." So there at least appears to be more effort by the government to act more in people's interests and act more to address pollution.
So talking about our first subject matter, which is the C aspect of our plan, the C aspect has two components. The first is maps, and the second is wearable technology. So up here we have a meteorological map of China, difficult word to say, and in the top right corner is the Heilongjiang province. And in Heilongjiang, there are two cities of interest that I'm going to talk about. The first is Jilin, and Jilin is right upstream from the province's main city, which is Harbin. Now, in 2005, Jilin had a massive benzene spill into the local river, which fed directly into Harbin. Now, Jilin, when the spill took place, there was a lot of public outcry. And in fact, the spill was the result of an explosion at a local oil refinery that resulted in 5 deaths. What all this goes to say is that this is the kind of event that doesn't require any maps. This is the kind of event where pollution is very evident. But this is not where the majority of pollution from China comes from. The majority of the pollution in China doesn't come from these huge events, it comes from smaller events. And it's very difficult to pinpoint where these events come from without using maps that chart where pollution is to try to trace back where it comes from to hold businesses more accountable. So our approach to this is to look at meteorological and ocean current maps in order to pinpoint where pollutants are found and try to trace back through trends over time, even where small levels of pollutants arrive from, to hold those small companies accountable. And here you see Army officials in Harbin filling up extra water canteens because there was a large water shortage in this instance. And here you see women carrying the buckets of water away, concerned about the water safety in the city. So the second aspect of how to see pollution more is actually trying to integrate pollution detection monitors on your body through wearable technology. So we've got Google Glass here, and then we've got a watch technology which monitors your health. Now, watch technologies that monitor your health are fairly common for geriatric patients or for patients with existing health conditions. Some of them may be simplistic enough just to alert health officials if you are in crisis. Some of them can monitor things like your blood pressure. Now, for patients who have existing asthma or have other lung conditions, we want to integrate air quality monitors in those devices, and then later integrate these on devices for the rest of the public. On my your right-hand side is a device called CitySense. It was developed by researchers at UCSD, and it is a backpack clip-on air monitor, quality monitor that can track the air quality as you travel about your day. So what these technologies can do is, in order to both pinpoint where pollutants are coming from and pinpoint the differences in pollution around the city, you can't just have a few pollution monitoring stations in a town. Beijing has a number of different pollution monitoring stations, but they vary dramatically. We were just talking with somebody who visited our poster this morning, and the air pollution levels in Hong Kong varied from 7 to 111 on an AQI scale, which we'll go into later. So it really takes not just a couple of monitors around town, but a pollution monitoring system that tracks you about your day to pick up on the differences in air quality around town and help inform you so that you can make decisions, lifestyle decisions about your air quality. So the next thing to talk about is blogs. Now, blogs are not only a way that people have access to air quality information, but they're also a place where people can talk about possible solutions to air pollution. Now, before, in the early 2000s, there were not a lot of official reports about air quality. Jiang Wang, who is working at the Academy of Social Sciences in Urumqi, which is across the country from Beijing, reported that during this time, Weibo was a great place for citizens to receive their air quality of the day. But interestingly enough, Weibo was also the place where a lot of citizens were expressing discontent about the air quality. There was a specific post that he was referring to in which 2 million people commented on the hashtag or commented on the thread, "I do not want to be a pollution vacuum," is the rough translation. So Weibo works kind of in two realms. It works both to help educate the population, but it can also work to help solve the pollution problem as a whole. And Weibo is interesting because from a Western standpoint, we see a lot of these blogs going up without any issue. But in China, we always wonder if there's going to be any backlash. Now, in China, there is a little bit of difficulty in the blogosphere with different restrictions on different words and phrases. But the nice thing about Chinese is that you're able to restructure the language and use different characters to replace those words so that you can still access information. And as an example, this is a picture of Mao wearing a pollution mask, which was quickly taken down from Weibo, but it still is able to be found on the Chinese internet using other search terms.
So one thing that has kind of hindered and clouded conversations regarding air pollution is the fact that different countries and even different cities within China use different air quality indices to communicate pollution levels. And China's AQIs usually aren't calculated linearly like the US is, meaning that a reading of 200 isn't necessarily twice as polluted as a reading of 100. And so this can be pretty confusing if you're trying to figure out how bad the air is and whether you should go outside. And another thing is that China's AQIs really don't explicitly communicate health risks. They usually use terms like lightly polluted or moderately polluted and then simply advise people not to go outside if they can. Whereas the US AQI and other countries kind of more explicitly communicate those risks by saying, the level of pollution is unhealthy for sensitive groups or very unhealthy for everyone. So we want our app and platform to better communicate the health effects associated with levels of pollution and also provide users with more kind of educational material about the causes and sources of some of the pollution and stuff. And ultimately, we want things to change. We want China's air quality to get better. We want it to happen, and for that to happen, we really believe citizens need to become more aware and have a better understanding of pollution issues, and that once they do, they'll take action to change things. And by having a platform that enables them to kind of share photos and information about their local environment, they can identify pollution sources and then pressure governments and businesses to actually take action to do something.